All right, so in this lesson, we are going to talk about fraction operations with negatives. So we are going to be performing addition, subtraction, and multiplication of fractions with negatives. We did dividing of fractions with negatives in the previous video, so if you need to revisit that one, make sure you go revisit that one. All right, so we want to remember our integer rules as we bring them over into fractions. So with division, remember that division is very similar, or not very similar, but identical to multiplication. So when you have a positive times a positive, it is a positive. A negative times a negative is also a positive. So those are same sign. So same sign is going to give you a positive result. Now, when you have a different sign, you're going to have a negative result. So positive times a negative is a negative, and a negative times a positive is a negative. Now, when you're adding, you also have same sign rules and different sign rules. So when you're adding and your two numbers have the same sign, you're going to add the numbers together and keep the sign. So for example, -6 plus -8. You're going to add the two numbers together, so 6 plus 8 is 14, but then because they both have negative signs, you're going to keep the negative sign and your answer is going to be -14. Now there's going to be times where you're adding two numbers together and they have a different sign. So for example, -6 plus 8. So in this case, you're going to ignore the signs. You're going to subtract the two numbers. So 8 minus 6 is 2, and you're going to keep the sign of the bigger number. So 8 is the bigger number. It's positive, and so your answer is going to be +2. Now, when you're subtracting, you're going to use keep, change, change. You don't necessarily have to use the tic-tac-toe board, but it's a good organizational tool to use. So if you have the problem -1 minus 7, you put it in the top row of the tic-tac-toe. You're going to keep the first number, which is -1. You're going to change the minus to plus, and you're going to change the +7 to a -7. Now, what you have done is you have changed your subtraction problem into an addition problem. So -1 plus -7, that same sign, add and keep, that's going to be -8. So let's do some addition of fractions here. All right, first we have 7 over 8 plus -2 over 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I have a common denominator. So my common denominator here is going to be 24. So 8 goes into 24 3 times. So 3 times 7 is 21. 3 goes into 24 8 times. -2 times 8 is -16. Now that I have my denominators the same, I bring it over. 21 plus -16. I have different signs, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract the two numbers, which is 5, keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 21, so my final answer is 5 over 24. Next problem, -5 over 6 plus -3 over 8. So I'm going to find a common denominator, which, let's see, again should be 24. So 6 goes into 24 4 times. 4 times -5 is -20. 8 goes into 24 3 times. -3 times 3 is -9. -20 plus -9, that same sign, so add and keep the sign. So that's going to be -29 over 24. Now for purposes of the notes, I want us to do both improper and mixed number. So that's going to be our improper fraction, and it is as simplified as possible. Now for our mixed number, 24 goes into 29 one time, make sure you put the negative, and then with 5 left over. So 5 over 24. All right, now we have some mixed numbers. Now with the mixed numbers, go ahead and first make them improper fractions. So 4 times 6 is 24. 24 plus 5 is 29. So we have -29 over 6 plus 2 times 9 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20 over 9. So our common denominator here is going to be 18. Okay, so 6 goes into 18 3 times. So 29 times 3 is 27. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So that's going to be negative 87 because we had a negative times a positive. 9 goes into 18 2 times, and 20 times 2 is 40. Now my denominator is 18. So I have a negative plus a positive, so that's same sign. So, or sorry, different sign. So I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So 87 minus 40 is going to be 47, and that's going to be negative. Now that's as simplified as it goes. But we're also going to do the mixed number. So how many times does 18 go into 47? Let's see. 3 times is too much, so it's going to be 2 times. So negative 2 for 36. So with 11 left over. All right, let's look at the next one here. So we have negative 2 2/3 plus negative 1 3/4. So we're going to make them a improper fraction. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. So negative 8 over 3 plus 1 times 4 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. So negative 7 over 4. Our common denominator is going to be 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. 4 goes into 12 3 times. Negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. They have the same sign, so we're going to add and keep. So 32 plus 21 is going to be negative 53. And that's as simplified as it goes. So we're now going to make it a mixed number. So 12 goes into 53, I believe, 4 times, because 12 times 4 is going to be 48. And so we're going to have 5 left over. All right, so let's do some subtraction. Okay, so here we have 2/5 minus 3/7. So remember, keep, change, change. And you don't have to draw the tic-tac-toe, but I'm going to. So I have 2/5 plus negative 3 over 7. So my common denominator is going to be 35. So 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 goes into 35 5 times. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Now I have different signs, so I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So 15 minus 14 is 1, but 15 is the bigger number, so it's going to be negative 1 over 35. And that's a proper fraction, so it cannot be made into a mixed number. All right, so over here I have some mixed numbers, and I'm going to make my tic-tac-toe. So I'm going to do keep, change, change. And as I bring them down, I'm also going to make them an improper fraction just to save some time. So 16 times 1 is 16 plus 3, so that's going to be 19 over 16. Change the minus to a plus. And this guy right here, he's negative, so he's going to become positive. Ooh, my little thing is freaking out. He's going to become positive as I bring him down. but that's going to be 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 5 is 29 over 8. So my common denominator is going to be 16. 16 goes into 16 one time. 1 times 19 is 19. 8 goes into 16 two times. 29 times 2 is 48. I have two positive numbers that I'm adding. 19 plus 48 is 67 over 16. And that's as simplified as we're going to go, but we should make it a mixed number. So let's see, 16 times 4. Okay, so that's 64, so it's going to be 4, and we'll have 3 left over 16. All right, 2 more. So here we have 3 and 1/8 minus 5 and 5/16. So I'm going to do a tic-tac-toe. And again, you don't have to do a tic-tac-toe if you just like to write KCC, but I like to keep it organized. So again, as I bring them down, I'm going to change them into an improper fraction just to save some time. So 3 times 8 is 24. 24 plus 1 is 25 over 8. Change the minus to a plus. And then 16 times 5 is 80. 80 plus 5 is 85 over 16, but that was positive, so it's going to become negative. My common denominator is going to be 16. 8 goes into 16 two times. 2 times 25 is 50. 16 goes into 16 one time. Negative 85 times 1 is negative 85. I have different signs, so I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. 85 minus 50 is 35. And 85 is the bigger number, so I keep the negative. That's as simplified as we're going to get. But let's also make the mixed number. 16 goes into 35 two times, which would be 32. So that would be 3 left over 16. All right. Next one, here we have a whole number. So we're going to do keep, change, change. So we're going to make this into a fraction here. So we're going to keep negative 7, but we're going to put it over 1 to make it a fraction. We're going to change the minus to a plus, and we're going to make this an improper fraction. So 14 times 2 is 28. 28 plus 9 is 37. The other thing is this was positive, so we're going to change it to a negative. Our common denominator is going to be 14. 1 goes into 14 times. 14 times 17, or 14 times 7 is 98, but it's going to be negative because there's a negative there. And 14 goes into 14 one time. Negative 37 times 1 is negative 37. Now I have the same sign here, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. So negative 135 over 14. And let's see if 7 goes into 135. Nope. Okay, so that's as simplified as we're going to get there. Now for our mixed number, so let's try 14 times 8. 14 times 9. So we have negative 9, and that looks like 9 over 14. All right, multiplication now. So remember, our multiplication rules are a lot easier than adding and subtracting. If we have the same sign, it's positive. Different sign, it's going to turn out to be negative. Also remember that we can cross cancel. So here we have a negative times a negative, so our answer is going to turn out to be positive. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if I can reduce anything up and down. So 3 and 8, no. 2 and 9, no. 3 and 9, yes. So if I had 3 over 9, that would cancel into 1 over 3. Okay? Then 2 over 8, yes. 2 over 8 can cancel into 1 over 4. Okay? So now I have 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times 3, which is 12. So my answer is 1 over 12. All right, next one. Now I'm going to rewrite this one so that I put my 3 over 1. So negative 3 over 1 times 5 over 18. So I have a negative times a positive, so my answer is going to be negative. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do my checks. Can 3 over 1 simplify? No. 5 over 18, can that simplify? No. Can 5 over 1 simplify? No. Can 3 over 18 simplify? Yes. So if I had 3 over 18, that would simplify into 1 over 6. So that becomes a 1, that becomes a 6. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 6 is 6. So my answer is negative 5 over 6. All right, now remember we need to make these mixed or improper fractions. So 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11. So negative 11 over 6 times 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, negative 9 over 2. I have a negative times a negative, so my answer is going to be positive. Okay, let's do my checks. Can 11 over 6 simplify? No. Can 9 over 2 simplify? No. Can 11 over 2 simplify? No. Can 9 over 6 simplify? Yes. So if I had 9 over 6, that would simplify to 3 over 2. Okay, so 11 times 3 is 33, and 2 times 2 is 4. So my final answer is 33 over 4. And then I'm also going to give the mixed number. So 4 goes into 33 8 times with 1 left over. And remember, my answer was positive because I had a negative times a negative. All right, over here I have a negative times a positive, so my answer is going to be negative. They're both proper fractions, so I should be good to go to start multiplying, or to start canceling. So can 7 over 12 simplify? No. Can 2 over 4 simplify? Yes. 2 over 4 simplifies to 1/2. Can 7 over 2 simplify? No. Can 1 over 12 simplify? No. So 7 times 1 is 7, and 12 times 2 is 24. All right, that is the end of this lesson, and we will do a lot more practice in class.